and welcome to the Accounting History SIG of BAFA 16th workshop on this lovely cold Tuesday morning. Welcome, and on behalf of the chair, so pleased to see you all here. That we have 20 participants, and I think we'll have a couple more join as we get here. And of course, this is being recorded for other people to watch as well. So thank you very much for being here. Looking forward to a varied selection of things around accounting history and art. I'm just going to very quickly share my screen, if I can find the thing for sharing, so that you can see the program. So there is our program today, Accounting History and Art, and we have 3 presentations, which you can now see on the screen. I'm going to stop sharing in order to let the first presenter share, and I'm going to pass you over to our chair today, who is Angelica, and she will be introducing and then chairing the questions and hopefully keeping everyone to time. So as chair of the committee of the Accounting History SIG, thank you all so much for being here.
Harry, before we begin, I just would like to remind everyone that for each speaker, we have 25 minutes for the presentation and then follow the 10 minutes for questions and discussion. So for the first paper, we have Accounting Governance and the Nationalization of an Arts Organization. The presentation is from Michela, I'm sorry if I pronounce wrong, Magliacani, Sebastian Hoffman, and Valentino Toscano, right?
Thank you, Angelica. First of all, I would like to thank Karen McBride and BAFA member to invite me and my co-authors of this paper to present the results of this research, which has drawn its inspiration from an ontological debate about art, or the role of art for society, which recall the same debate in the ancient Greek, where arts, techne, stands for the ability to know how. In other words, to get experience. According to Plato, the art is an imitation of the reality, which is in turn imitation of the idea of the world. That means imitation of imitation. Arts, in its various forms, push humanity into the idea of the real world. And so it was considered by Plato as the first step of the ladder of knowledge. Aligned to this fourth is disciple Aristotle, boost the importance of the societal and political function of art, considering its transformative power. In other words, the various forms of arts, in particular catharsis, performing art, was able to put the public in the place of actor and actress in order to understand much better the social phenomenon that was performed by the catharsis. And so in this way, art was considered as a source of human growth. By doing a Pindaric jump to the modern age, this debate has been also developed by other philosophers, such as Hockenheim and Adorno, who argue or debate about the culture for society during the industrialization. So culture, for the sake of profit, failed in its mission to educate people to become independent and humanitarian thinkers. And in this interdisciplinary, much more philosophical debate about art for society, actually, the early accounting study about arts refer to the late 18th, when the crisis of the welfare state pushed public administration and so art organization to adopt managerial and accounting practice in order to produce as well measure the value for money. So austerity trigger what? A sort of accounting colonization in public administration, in public setting, such as arts organization, even though recent literature underlines how accounting as a mere practice is not able to ascribe value to cultural goods. And this is perfectly aligned to the thought of the philosopher, the two German philosophers, when they talk about the difference of budget that are not able to explain the different meaning of cultural products. And by the way, the accounting literature acknowledge how the study of art organization represent a context or glimpse the possibility to build theory by the effort of accountant to reconstruct the inner complexity of art organization, to select calculative practices useful for decision-making process and accountability in this particular complex organizational context. So from this interdisciplinary speculation about art for society, a curiosity comes in our minds. In particular, we have seen that the accounting literature study art organization in the wave of new public management. So from art organization, from public to private organization. And we would like to study the opposite, a kind of reverted privatization. So when a art organization from private become public, what happens in the accounting system? So how the nationalization of art organization can affect the accounting culture and practice in art organization. And in other words, we would like to extend much more the knowledge about the tension between public and private concern on art for society by checking the change of accounting governance of art organization under this nationalization process. And we try to do this to achieve this research aim by carry out a case study, a critical case study in our views, because actually, it is about the Teatro Fraschini of Pavia, Italian theater, located in a city in the southern east of Lombardy. Why it is critical for us, the Teatro Fraschini? Because it was set up as a private organization and it was nationalized by the Pavia municipality in the mid of 19th century. So during when the nationalization became an important, relevant phenomenon in Europe. So after the Italian unification, decision, 1861, the state, the Italian, the state would like to be engaged directly in the market, and we'll see how this decision by a central government impact also on the life of the Teatro Fraschini, because it was nationalized by the Pavia municipality after 8 years by the unification of Italy. And another aspect that let us consider this case critical is the fact that we carry out a content analysis on one main primary source that was a book, an accounting book compiled, written by Pietro Agosteo. Who was Pietro Agosteo, a guy that was born in Pavia in 1835, and in particular, he was the first accountant of the new theater under the public governance after the nationalization. In other words, Pietro Agosteo is the witness of the evolution of the theater, but in particular, the importance of this main primary source, because the chronologia give us or left us a kind of storytelling of the theater since its institution and until 1899. So since 1773 until 1899. So page by page, we can read through accounting data the evolution and the change of Teatro Fraschini. And so we use this main primary source, and in addition, other primary sources that are relating the Pavia municipality, such as budget, final report, in particular, moral report, in the time span of the analysis. And we use secondary data that we gather from the Civic Archive of Pavia that tell about the history of the theater under a historiographical, so traditional historiographical perspective. But it was important to fill the gap of interpretation of the chronicle, and I'll show you later. Actually, we split our analysis in two parts. The period of life when the theater was under a private governance, and after the nationalization. So before and after the nationalization. So the theater of Pavia was set up in 1773. By four knife, so aristocrats of Pavia society, and the theater was called Teatro del Nobile Condominio. It means theater of the noble condominium. The four knights ran directly the theater and actually arrange the cultural activities for aristocracy, but also ran other secondary activities like gambling. That was very spread at that time, no? In the Pavia society. And they use three main ledgers: the receipts and expenses book, the ordinary book, the contract book. We have no possible for us to examine these ledgers, this primary source, because they have been destroyed by a fire that occurred in the middle of 19th century. And so it was not possible. And so we suppose that the last person that used this book was Pietro Agosteo. who use these books in order to start its chronicle. The chronicle starts with an introduction and then information about the activity of the theater since 1774. And look, we can see a long list of opera and of activities, cultural activities, just them in this chronicle. Also, the only figures in this chronicle, in this part of the chronicle, regard the total cash income, the total amount for cultural season, but we don't know the source of this income. We suppose the sale of the ticket, but we are not sure. Also, the total expenses and the net cash flow achieved year by year. But for example, already in 1846, Agosteo wrote that the amount of the financial result was very scarce, also because the concert and the opera have start not to be appreciated by people, by the audience. So for example, this opera have not be replaced. And this means that Agosteo tried to explain why the results, the financial results decrease. Actually, from the secondary source, we know that in 1843 there was the ban of gambling, and the historians said that it was the main cause of the crisis of the theater that got into bankruptcy in 1852. But the theater was saved by the municipality. Then, when after the Italian unification, I told you, I mentioned before, the central government, the Italian government recommended to local governments to nationalize cultural institutions in order to disseminate Italian education and national culture. And it occurs in Pavia. And so the municipality purchased the share of the heirs of the four knights, the co-owners, and so reopened the theater since November 12, 1869, renamed Teatro Fraschini in honor to Gaetano Fraschini, who was a well-known tenor of Verdi opera. And the management was in charge of a committee composed of 6 members, 3 appointed by the municipality and the other 3 by the private person who hold the seats, the box in the theater. And the management was supported by the secretary accountant in charge of bookkeeping, Pietro Agosteo. And this governance structure lasts until 1951, when the municipality decided to change the legal form of the theater from institution to cooperative. So we started to analyze the book, the chronicle, and we can see how, since the page relating to the year 1869, the number are more than the words. The numbers are the accounting records about the income and expenses. They are concise with the number that we have seen and found in the Giornale di Cassa, the cash journal, the principal accounting book, the main accounting book of the theater. After its nationalization. And this journal Cassa was very important because was able to align the accounting system of the theater with the municipality. And so the municipality asked to Agosteo information about financial information about Teatro Fraschini, which was listed in the inventory of the municipality as an asset. Also, ask financial information about the value of the assets of the theater that the municipality consider for adopt the impairment. And also the municipality ask, this is a paper about the correspondence, between the theater Agosteo and the mayor, ask information, not financial information, but information about the activity, the number of the seats sold, the outcome of the cultural activities, etc., in order to compile the rendiconto morale, the moral report. That was very important. We now go on into the accountability, because the moral report was a institutional communication tool used by the municipality to communicate to the citizen the use of their theater. In particular, I reported here in this slide a page of the local newspaper, La Provincia Pavese, which is still exists. In its digital archive, we have seen that in 1893, the Provincia Pavese, the local newspaper, mentioned the moral report of the municipality, and we observe, because fortunately the Civic Archive of Municipality has this source. We use the moral report of this year, and we have found that the municipality communicated to the citizen the free use of the theater for charity purpose, but in the same time the difficulty to run the theater because of the cut of subsidies, so financial resources. And so this is was very important, and leads us to summarize some insights that comes from the findings of this case study. So we can say that the nationalization of the theater was not bad in the sense that improved the accounting culture of this art organization, improve the accounting level, the accounting books, and so in other words, accounting was considered an important function to make more transparent the activity run by the theater by using public resources. And so this seems in contrast with the new public management paradigm, according to which private is always better. Also, we thought that this accounting system of the theater was based, has a cash basis. But what is important is the fact that the accountant provide financial and non-financial information that was because required by the municipality for accountability. And it demonstrates how the shift from bad management to good management required the efforts of both art and accounting professionals. So in terms of in the artistic side, accounting is important to measure what is good, what we can achieve right with the less, and to make all the performance accountable in order to legitimate the use of a public assets as a theater. In the other side, the accountants recognize the importance to produce not only financial information, but also information that have an impact on or reflect the benefit of a cultural good as the theater for the society and for spread morality. And this leads to confirm the importance to shift from the accounting-based accountability to accountability-based accounting, and demonstrate the importance to open our minds as accountant, and because it's important, in particular in art organization, to give to make available what is not measurable, but is so important, such as financial, non-financial information, what is important for a art organization in order to demonstrate its function for the society and the community. So I would like to conclude with this, with the importance to consider the multidimensional nature of accounting, and so accounting not as a mere practice, but also as a social and moral practice. And this is our main contribution with this historical case study. So thank you for your attention, and we are here for your comments and your question in order to improve our research. Thank you.
For questions. So please, if you have a question, please raise the hand or type the question in chat. But in the meanwhile, I think I can start with one, and then people can get a little more time to participate. Michela, I was here just wondering, because as I understood, you were trying to see if that idea that we always have in the book, saying that when we have an organization and we have private management, this is always better for the company. And then as far as I understood, you were trying to get those in making contrast between during the time that the organization was private, so end of 18th century, beginning of 19th century, and then after, when the time that came for public a public concern. But did you define in advance in your research what kind of aspects in the bookkeeping system or in the accounting practice you would like to really to check and maybe to compare? Did you have time to establish this in advance before start, or you still in a point that you were trying to just collect the information and put this information together, start to do your analysis?
Okay, thank you, Angelica, and thank you all of you to your attention. Actually, Angelica, I answer, but also Sebastian will help me. We use the lens of, or better, the interpretation of the accounting by Agosteo. I would like to answer like this. We use the Agosteo lens of interpretation. I know that is an indirect, not direct view of interpretation. I know that could be doubtful, but we use him as a witness of, what happens in the theater. And unfortunately, we cannot use the accounting system of use by that theater under the private governance. By the way, from also the what Agosteo reported in the page during the private governance seems that are similar to other theater, Italian theater, that was run during the same period, or better, before the unification. You know what?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
But maybe Sebastian can add something more.
Thank you, Michaela. Happy to do so. And yes, in addition to this, I mean, and I also need to remind ourselves that this was a time when there was no regulation on financial statement. Particularly, these type of organizations did not have an obligation to produce elaborated financial statements or operate elaborated accounting information systems of any type, which makes it in this setting impossible to then say, look, we come with a predetermined mindset of what the ideal state should be, and then go through it like a checklist and say element A is there, element B is not there, element C, yeah, some parts of it. Not possible for once. Second, and this is what Michaela already mentioned, also is the particular source situation, and this is something that we always need to deal with in historical studies, that not everything is fully available anymore when we do our investigations. Such that as a result, what we did in the end is an exploratory study to say, well, look, we take the most credible, the most robust source available, and analyze this for what do we see? What is still carried through this chronicle from the late 18th century to the late 19th century, in order to get an idea, not a minuscule detailed narrative of everything, but to get an idea of this longitudinal change in accounting practices stipulated then by this shock. I would say it's a kind of economic shock to the system there when the municipality took over ownership.
Okay, thank you so much. I think now Fernanda Leão has a question for us. Please, Fernanda.
Yes, I find, Michaela, I find interesting your findings related to accountants' role in communicating artistic performance, because nowadays we are discussing changes in the role of accountants, and I think we can learn from the past. So I think you can explore deeply this contribution. I think it has potential. I don't know. It's my suggestion.
Yes, thank you, Fernanda. Actually, I'm surprised about that, no? Because I mean, the past actually from the past it's possible to have some answer, without any imposition from the law. you know.
Yeah.
Some practice, accounting practice came spontaneous because accounting was able to answer to some requirements, no, in this case from the municipality. So the municipality has to be in touch with the community, explain why the theater was in difficulty through the moral report. So through a report that explain why sometimes the theater was closed, for example, or for use for get money for orphans. So this is so I really agree with the literature accounting academics which emphasize, like Luca Zan emphasize this important rule of accounting for arts.
Okay. Okay. Just a suggestion.
Thank you for your suggestion.
Austin, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Michaela, for a very interesting study. I just wanted to ask you about the introduction that you had, and talking particularly about ancient Greece and Rome, and the development of a discourse of the significance of art, which is clearly very important. I missed this at the time, so I don't know whether you raised this or not. It's the rate, if you like, the role of the wealthy private citizens, but also not just the citizens. In Athens, you have this class of people, the metoikoi, the people who live alongside us, Italian, sorry, Athenian citizens, and actually are the significant merchants in the city. So you have these people, and there is the role of liturgy, which is both compulsory in one sense, the wealthy need to provide things, but it is also simultaneously a system for advancing your personal and political agendas, and no doubt wealth agendas, whether one was acting as a merchant or not. I don't know if you picked it up like that, but I'm just raising it as an issue about seeing parallels between what takes place from the 18th century and what would have taken place in 5th and 4th century BCE Athens.
I think, thank you very much for your comments, because I think it's very fascinating study, further study. I want to say, maybe Sebastian agree with me.
Yeah, he is very nice thinking, and highly appreciated. But to be honest, I mean, that would be a bit of a stretch, I think, for what we're doing here. And I think it was at no point the intention to try and introduce some kind of comparison between these two cultural periods. I want to say, though. I also have to admit, I have really also no idea of how theaters were run in Athens at the time, and how far they were commercialized, for instance, because this is underlying what you're asking, is to say how much commercialization in the realm of these cultural enterprises, cultural venues, did we see? And the thing is, I would have no idea. I would also have no idea where to start. If you have and want to do, I think we'd be happy to provide some insights from 19th century Italy to this. But getting back to Athens, well, I think, really speaking from my point of view, impossible for us. Though an interesting thought. in summary, what we did was just to provide a bit of intellectual contextualization of the theme, and is to motivate why a study of these type of organizations also matters from an accounting and commercial point of view.
Okay, thank you so much, Karen. We still have time for a short question. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Again, interesting presentation. Thank you, Michaela. Picking up actually on what perhaps Sebastian was saying about economic shocks, and indeed what Keith was saying about the role of wealthy private citizens, I was curious to hear of a link between the gambling ban and the bankruptcy of the theatre. And I just wondered what that linkage really was, how that came about, and why that came about. And I just wonder if it's linked with what Keith is saying about actually there being wealthy citizens who promoted the theatre, and perhaps that was the place for their gambling. I don't know, I'm just merely surmising, but you would probably be able to give us much more insight.
I would like to say yes, but it was not possible also for me, because actually it's a very bad issue also right now in Pavia. The gambling is a social issue, really. Is that and look, I discovered that was also in the past. And aristocracy use gambling in the theater. So use the theater as a place for their entertainment in any form, actually, no? And this was what we wrote in the paper, the reverted privatization, no? What's happening in this, theater. Because according to Hockenheim Adorno, the private management of the theater has some problems in this term, because culture lost its social mission, you know. It was like an evidence that Hockenheim Adorno thought are right, you know. And but I come back to your question. Actually, also in the from the chronicle, it's not possible to understand this connection with the gambling and the income, and how the gambling impact on the financial results of the theater, because he reported just the total amount of income and expenses for theater season. And we got this information just from the book regarding the history of the theater. So historians ascribe to gambling the failure of the teatro del nobile condominio, so the theater of the city. But I don't.
Presentation, it's called Mass Communication as a Strategy for Economic Growth in War Neutrality, the case of Salazar's propaganda posters. And Professor Fernanda Leão, I think, is responsible to present this for us. So, Fernanda, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
All, thank you very much for being here. First, I would like to thank Karen for the invitation to present this paper, this working paper, because it's not a finished paper. The paper is about propaganda posters issued by Portuguese totalitarian regime as a communication strategy for economic growth and war neutrality. Here we have in this slide an example of these posters. This poster was issued by the Ministry of the Economy for agricultural production campaign. The message is chicken coop populated ordered wealth. So this is the agenda for this presentation. And the objective is of this study is to analyze the use of posters made by this totalitarian regime known as Estado Novo, or Salazarismo, or Salazar's regime, as analyze these posters as a propaganda instrument to stimulate agricultural production and the wealth that could be obtained through this activity during the period of 1933 to 1949. So the literature points out that totalitarian regime provides a rich setting to study how dictators use accounting information to control and discipline the mass population in its everyday life. So it can contribute for a better understanding of accounting as a social practice. Accounting research focused on totalitarian regimes has been mainly concentrated on the exercise of power in extreme forms, particularly in Italy and Germany. However, other authors have also focused on different dimensions of this totalitarian regime, such as cultural institutions and the promotion of agriculture and rural life. And this paper aims to contribute in this point by extending the literature focused on the simulation of the agriculture by totalitarian regimes. We use Barth's semiotics theory as a lens of analysis of the posters. Semiotics looks at humans' interaction with the world and how people construct meanings about what they encounter in everyday life. Semiotics has three key aspects: the sign, the signifier, and the signified. The sign is what humans can get with their senses, like a picture, a word, a gesture, an object. And the sign converts into a representation, which is associated with the signifier. And this signifier generates a meaning, which is context dependent. For example, we have here a picture, which converts into a representation of an apple, but depending on the context, it can the meaning can be fruit, health, temptation, computer, or other things. Semiotics has two key concepts deeply explored by Barth: the concept of denotation and the concept of connotation, which are associated to systems of meaning, a first order system and a second order system. Barth postulates that a particular verbal or non-verbal message has two meanings: the literal meaning associated with the first order system of meaning, the denotation, and the real meaning of the representation, which is implicit in what is said or shown, which is associated with the connotation, the second order system of meaning, whose signifier comes from the first order system of denotation. So the notative meaning is usually explained as literal, obvious, common sense understanding, like a definition of a dictionary, and connotation is a broader dimension, anchored on second sense, and belonging to a second order system of meaning that is context dependent. It depends on cultural, historical, and social contexts. So connotation varies cross-culturally and over time. Semiotics, forward semiotics has connotation, and this connotation is a key sign system that transforms neutral things into ideological tools. He associates connotation with myth to emphasize the ideological content of the signs that underpin particular cultural worldviews, and he points out that mythic signs feed dominant cultural values. He proposed that myths are the naturalization of cultural ideologies. That is, myth makes what is cultural seems natural through a process of rooting meanings in society that led people to perceive them as natural and universal. Our Portuguese context during our period of analysis. Between 1933 and 1974, Portugal was under a dictatorship regime known as Salazar regime. This regime was characterized as being nationalist, authoritarian, and corporatist, and the regime adopted different mechanisms and organizations to guarantee the indoctrination of the mass population. And during this period, Portugal was poor, had a small-scale economy, limited access to foreign capital, and had a weaker industry when compared with other European countries. The focus of Salazar was to balance the national accounts and to reduce importations. He had a strong emphasis on agriculture, and the aim was to achieve self-sufficiency. This focus led the regime to mobilize the population by using propaganda strategies. Two main propaganda strategies were undertaken: Salazar speeches on the radio and posters distributed across the country, stimulating agricultural productions. The use of posters was a relevant strategy for Salazar to reach the mass population that subsisted on agriculture and animal husbandry in a poor and rural country at the time. The policy of self-sufficiency became more important during the Second World War. The state gave a supervisory role to some federations. These federations could create marketing and distribution rules. It became mandatory for producers to declare their production to federations, including small producers. And the measures and rules adopted by the state and by the supervisory federations benefited large producers and were harmful for the small producers, which saw their wages, the decrease of their wages. Salazar explained in his speeches the necessary sacrifices that had to be done because of the war, which included a request of the deliver of part of the agricultural production should be delivered to the government. And in 1942, Salazar deepened the idea that during the war period, the country's best defense will be the agricultural production and the wealth that could be obtained from this activity. Our sources, our main sources are Salazar's propaganda poster issued between 1933 and 1949 related to economic policy. We then complement these sources with then semi-structured interviews to understand the effects of the propaganda on families' agricultural productions. Our interviewees were persons from rural areas whose parents had land to be farmed and who were children in 1930s, 40s, and 50s. The interviews starting by showing Salazar's posters related to the stimulation of agriculture to the interviewees. By using Barth's theory, we found the two systems of meaning, the denotative system, whose signifier is composed by the posters, the propaganda posters, and which has a literal description of the propaganda posters corresponding to the signified of the denotative system. Together, this signifier and signified generate a sign for the mass population of self-sustenance and wealth. This sign converts into the signifier of the second order system, the connotative system, and has the meaning is farming, extending portfolio, fuel use of land. It depends on the population, better life, satisfaction. And from this second order system of meaning, the connotative system, is generated a new sign of happiness, well-being, and prosperity are in rurality, and people should be proud to be rural. And according to Barthes, this sign converts into a myth that can reinforce and maintain the Salazar's ideology. This is our interpretation based on Barth's theory. So Salazar's posters transmitted political message to the entire population. It gained strength in Portugal and in 1933, and in the National Propaganda Secretariat strategically defined the posters to capture the mass population attention and to make them feel motivated to produce more and more agricultural productions and bred animals. For the message to be understandable to a population that at the time had low levels of education, the posters have little text but appealing messages and large images. And as pointed out by the literature, visual communication has long been a strategy for effective mass communication. And this dictatorial regime noticed this and fed a propaganda machine that was a governance strategy with a psychosocial mission of guiding the mass population lives at all levels. The posters were a means to spread intended message with latent meanings perceived by Portuguese ordinary people as natural and without second interests, thus capable of feeding their dreams and motivating them to undertake the necessary actions to accomplish the government's interests of the state. By portraying what was ordinary in people's life at that time, such as the rural work, the agricultural products, the animals usually bred. The posters highlight signs of Portuguese culture, thus masking the constructed meaning that prosperity is in rurality under the appearance of the original meaning. The rhetoric of Salazar's agrarian posters is identified as self-sustenance and wealth, which are the signs of the denotative or denotation system, corresponding to the signifier of the connoted message, as I said. Barthes called the meaning of the connotative system the mythical concept, the very intention of behavior, and argues that it is the insistence in behavior that exposes the intention. And we can see across time and different posters the same ideas to be provided. The meaning of the rhetoric of the agrarian posters is suggested as farming is promising, extending agricultural and livestock portfolio is the way, full use of land is needed, it depends on you or be active, all is in your hands. Better life can be achieved through agricultural and livestock production and satisfaction as well. So a sign of rurality is identified as providing happiness, well-being, prosperity, and pride. And propaganda allowed Salazar to make mass population believe that rurality was the solution for a flourishing country and life. And because of this, the population voluntarily followed the economic principles of the regime and fed this regime. From our interviews, we select here some statements that highlight the results of the strategy of the government, of the Salazar's government. So I remember seeing the files always full. The truth is that was the cereal that we had always sown. We had some vineyards, and in the space between them, we grew potatoes. We always had the chicken coops and rabbit hutch full. In good years, we got enough apples to eat and to sell. They took our things, our livelihood, and sold the products to the countries that were at war, and we didn't earn anything from it. I remember that from ever we have vineyards and making wine. It was with this wine which we later sold that we were able to put bread on the table. They grabbed bags they had brought and start filling them with our potatoes, onions, corns, and corn cobs. We were left with nothing to sell at the markets. So these are some statements that highlight the effects of the Salazar strategy that he achieved his intentions. So to conclude, the analysis of Salazar's posters of agrarian policy emphasizes the concern with creating an image of rural idealisms linked to prosperity, the myth of rurality. The message was a positive one, motivating and feeding populations' dreams. The posters followed the characteristics of mass communication image. The argument was presented as natural and free of interests, as postulated by Barthes. And the study itself may contribute to the literature by extending the knowledge of the role of accounting in totalitarian regimes. The country's accounting led this totalitarian regime to identify areas of desired intervention, and accounting as a social practice is suggested, as it led to delineating a propaganda strategy directed to the mass population, poor and rural, to increase agricultural production and the wealth and the self-sufficiency of the country, having thus an impact on people's life and culture. Future research can explore more in detail the Salazar strategies during the Second World War, with a concern on social assistance to the countries suffering from the war. From the early 1940s, during the war, more and more posters were issued to influence the population to produce more. So the state could later take advantage on this agricultural production and livestock breeding to sell to the countries suffering from the war. But this obligation to contribute to the reconstruction of the countries participating in the war brought no benefit from the mass Portuguese population. On the contrary, it only harmed them, with the state being the only beneficiary from this agricultural production and this situation. So thank you very much for listening. We are here for your suggestions for improve our paper.
Were the posters just used to convincing the Portuguese population, or did the government also use those to try to create a better international picture of the country to other countries?
No, I think our totalitarian regime is mainly focused in Portugal. The regime has the characteristic of being nationalist, and I think the idea of this totalitarian regime was to increase the agricultural production, to have independence from the other countries. The regime would like to achieve self-sufficiency, not to be dependent or to interact with other countries. The process was spread across the country. Not we don't have information that the posters were used to provide information to other countries. We didn't explore yet the concrete situation during the Second World War and why how the state, I don't know if Delphine has some information about this, how this corporatist state obtained the neutrality we know that the neutrality was achieved, or is claimed to be that was achieved due to the selling of agricultural products to other countries, but we didn't explore yet this question deeply. Okay.
If I can add, one characteristic of the Portuguese dictatorial regime is that it was closed. It was not opened to the other countries. Salazar didn't want the Portuguese to know what was happening or the developments in other countries. What he wanted, and his background was in accounting and finance, and his objective was to balance the public finances. So he used the neutrality to make business with the Germans and also with the Allies. That was his idea. We have information that it was selling wolframium and other products to both parties in the war. So it was playing, and the Portuguese were not aware of that.
Okay.
It was very close regime.
Yeah. Jan, please.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my points, Delphina. That as well as being it was a political strategy as well as an economic strategy to sort of maintain this. Salazar was walking a tightrope of neutrality, and he was trying to make sure he kept both sides of the war, sort of the Allies and the sort of German forces, neutral in their place. I was also wondering, because agricultural self-sufficiency was a massive importance of all countries during the Second World War, because they were wanting to limit imports, and especially in the UK. But one country that really suffered, and there may be a comparison, was to see what happened in Italy, where again there was a very large, poor farming community that was totally destroyed because of Italy's impact in the Second World War, you know, when the Allies started to invade the country. So there may be, I was interested in your comment that there was no benefit to the farmers from this position of neutrality. I think there was a benefit that they didn't have to fight. There was no land battles going on in their country. Whereas if you look at Italy, you know, a lot of Italian subsistence farming was totally destroyed in the Second World War. And so there may be a comparison there. I don't know, but fascinating subject. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Richard?
Thanks. I see Karen has just put a comment in the chat which relates to what I was going to say. I don't think these posters are unique to any particular country. There are lots of posters in Britain in the war telling you to turn your garden into an allotment in order to grow food. If you look at the Soviet Union, there's all those muscular chaps driving tractors. Same in China. Mao had posters of, because they're all dealing, well, not so much in Britain, but in the other countries, they're all dealing with largely illiterate populations who need visual stimulation to convey messages. I don't think Salazar's posters are well, from what I know, which is not much, I don't think they're particularly unique. Interesting, but not unique.
Okay. Yes, a comparison could be an important way to develop the study. And the comparison with Italy, it might be useful to understand. Of course, the strategy, Salazar's strategy might be inspired by the practices in other countries, and we can see if we can get the other posters to compare and expand the scope of the study. I think it will be interesting. But for now, our analysis is for now confined to the Portuguese situation, and we at first we are thinking to develop the study by deeply analyze the period of the Second World War. But we are still thinking about how to develop the study, and a comparison, I think it will be very interesting. Thank you very much.
If I can
Yeah.
just add one thing,
Okay.
is that the comparison could be very interesting to show our country that says that is neutral. So people should not be suffering from the World War. The thing is that the population was poor, was starving, and the government were saying them, it's good to be poor, you should be proud, and you need to produce more. And then we go to your houses, we take your products and sell them to other countries. While Italy suffered directly from the war. Spain had a different regime. So there are different dimensions here, yes, that we could explore. But although the posters are not unique, they are not, of course, but the regime that was behind and the message was quite different from the other dictatorial regimes around Europe. That's at least what I learned from what I read.
Papers about governing, managing, and accounting before governmental management, reading the Lorenzetti Siena frescoes on the allegory of good government. Please, Stefania.
Thank you. It's about a reading of a fresco that, even if it's not a technical fresco, but is a painting realized by Lorenzetti in the public palace of Siena. And his name is The Allegory of Good and Bad Government. Our aim is to offer an understanding of the substrata of governing, managing, and accounting in the context of the city-state of Siena during the Council of Nine office. It spans from the 1287 to about the mid of the 14th century, 1355, and it was a very peaceful moment. The reason to study this fresco are multiple. It has been neglected by the accounting research, despite it offers a series of opportunity to consider the visual dimension and the visualization, as well as some accounting statement and true claims. We have few examples in this sense. One of these is Davidson and Giovannoni 2023, for example. And it also permits an investigation of this fresco. It also permits to extend a strand of research on the early governmental management in the Italian context. We have some examples already published. So this study locates itself within the ongoing historiographical and conceptual developments, which are ongoing within, but also beyond the strictly accounting research. We have used different sources, primary sources, accounting documents, but also, of course, our main source was the Lorenzetti fresco. And we have studied a series of literature about this fresco coming from history, after history, and political philosophy, as well as some sources about the history of the town and the city-state of Siena. Because of our theoretical framework, Foucauldian readings as well as critical reading of Foucault has been explored as well. In our methodology, we have combined not just the pure visual dimension, but also the inscription that are within these pictorial space, because we can see a series of names explaining the figures inside the fresco, but also we find narrative statements. A full poem is inside the fresco as well. And we have also considered the location of this fresco in our methodological approach, because this fresco is located in the Chamber of Nine, the place where the Nine were used to have their meeting, and it occupies 3 walls. And so you have different viewpoints, and you can walking in this room have a unique vision of these 3 dimension offered by the fresco. We will see the fresco in these different on these different walls later on in this presentation. So this work can be also identified, our work, it can be also identified in terms of a constitutive reality, power, and inscription, in the sense also highlighted by Davidson classification. Our theoretical reading leads to the history of ideas. In particular, we have explored a series of political philosophers, and in particular, we are challenging the Skinner view on the fresco. Skinner used to say that this fresco is not allegorical. We have combined this dimension with also the history of governmental reason, the Foucauldian history of governmental reason. In particular, consider the moment of the shift from the state of justice towards the administrative state. And we have complemented these two dimensions with other 2 factors that go beyond the classical idea of a good government already expressed by the Greek and Romans in their works. And these 2 factors are related to the emergence of the literary genre of the allegory, in particular the psychomachy of Prudentius, as a new double text. And so a combination of text plus a pictorial dimension as a way to intensify this dimension. And the other factors is related to the development of way of thinking. In the 11th century, we have the emergence of new forms of critical inquiry or critical reading considered as inquisitio, and in particular, looking at Panofsky and Foucault, inquisitio is a new way of working with texts. So in a sense, is rewriting this text, constructing 2 claims that are repositioning the boundaries between the truth and the false. And in so doing, it emerged the dimension of inquisitio, but also of manifestatio, as a way of solving the contradiction. So moving from contradiction to non-contradiction contest. So realizing what is considered as concordantia. And this is strictly and strongly present in the fresco. At the same time, we have considered the dimension of new way of writing and reading. So the new practice of synoptic graphocentrism and the double-entry bookkeeping is an example. The invention of double-entry bookkeeping is an example in this sense. In addition to the Inquisitio dimension, we have the governmental reason, and so in particular the construction of an economy of virtues and faults that comes from the religious context at the beginning as a way of constructing the good monk, but was later on adopted inside the state as a way to offer a model of governing the state. And Hammer has also offered us an intriguing idea of consider governing not as an oikos, but as a societas, a partnership among citizens in particular. This is the structure of the governance in the city-states of Siena. Is in a sense is similar to other city-states, but it's also peculiar. You can see on the left corner the 9 governors and defenders of the Comune and people of Siena. The name is of particular significance. Governors and defender of the Comune and the people of Siena. The office of this board was a short office, 6 months at the top. We have a noble Sienese that was the podesta. The period of the 9 was a period of stability. It was a prosperous period, and with a great attention on art and artists. Most of the outstanding building we can still admire in Siena were realized in that moment. They also create a policy of beauty. They issue specific laws creating official on beauty. They realize exceptional building such as the town hall, the tower beside it, the so-called Torre del Mangia. They also pave the campus square that became the new heart of Siena. So the campus square was, in a sense, substituted the religious area that was previously the hub of Siena. And in this context, Ambrogio Lorenzetti was called by the governors to realize this fresco. It was an intriguing subject because it was not just a painter, it was a philosopher painter, a man of letters, more in general, we could say an intellectual. He was inspired by both Giotto, for example, for the way to conceive the volume, the use of space, the location of figures, for example, and also for some dimension related to the civil painting. And he was in particular inspired by Simone Martini for a topographic painting. We see some specific references on specific location in the city, but also in the country side. So painting was used as an instrument of knowledge of time and space. Well, this is the context where the fresco is located, the Room of the 9. And we can see the distribution of this fresco on 3 walls. On the male wall, we find the allegory of the good government. On the left, we find the allegory of the bad government and the effects of the bad government in the city and in the country. And on the eastern wall, the effects of the good government in the city and in the country. This is the distribution of the painting. So on the back, we can see the good government, the effect, the bad government in the effect on the countryside, and on the right, the effect on the town and the countryside of the good government. This is the fresco on the back, and we have 2 key figures in this fresco. This is justice by one side and the common good on the other side. I shift very quickly. These are the 2 main figures on this side of the fresco. They are key, and they are surrounded by a series of virtues. On the top, we have wisdom and the 3 theological virtues, faith, charity, and hope. In the middle, we find justice and the common good as key element, surrounded by other virtues, and in the middle we find peace. The idea is if you have a good government, you can realize a peaceful government and a peaceful city-state. In the lower part, you find the people. You can see here some citizen and Concordia and the founder of Siena. I will discuss something more later on in my presentation. This is justice. This was inspired by Giotto. This is the justice realized by Giotto. But there are some differences in realization, because the Giotto realization of justice is single acting. The commutative justice and the distributive justice on the scale span are just single acting. While you can see here the two sides, they are both double acting. I will comment these elements in my next slides. So it was inspired by Giotto, but Lorenzetti went beyond Giotto's representation. So you can easily see here this new dimension realized by Lorenzetti, because we have a distributive justice on the left that is double acting. It crowns and at the same time is decapitating. So it crowns a man and is decapitating another man. So we have a system of rewards and punishment. But at the same time, also on the side of the commutative justice, on the right-hand side, we have a double acting, because we have an angel, a white dress angel, offering money to a man and offering arms to another one. So we have a new kind of balance realized in this fresco, and it's a way to express a new form of equitas based on a principle of equilibrium, and in particular based on the resolution of contradiction, because at the feet of the justice we see this young woman that is Concordia, that is with an instrument in her hand, and this is a plane. This is a typical instrument used to smooth woods, for example, when you realize something. And so it's a way to show that you are resolving the contradiction. And this was realized by Concordia and by the contribution of all people involved. This is the common good, that is both the common good, but also it's a way to represent the Comune of Siena. This is a figure that is also in a cover of one of the cash and taxation books of the town, the so-called Big Kerner. And this is the representation inside the fresco. It's very important to see this part of a fresco as a whole, because we can see that the justice that we were commenting few minutes ago is double acting, and coming down from the two scale span, there are strands that are going down and they are reaching the ends of Concordia. Concordia twists these two strands and creates a single cord that is passing through the hand of the citizens, the people down here. And this cord is going up, reaching the end of the common good. And this is the way to realize a government of peace, a peaceful moment. That was exactly what was realized by the Office of Nine during their office. You can see here Concordia with the plane on her knees and the two strands coming down from the scale span. Here you can easily see a red strand and a white one becoming a single cord and passing through all the citizens till reaching the the common to reaching the common goods. So Pax is the main effect of a just government for the interest of the common good. So you need to eliminate the conflicts by the plane. This is the way to realize a peaceful governance of the time. Of course, you need also to protect the citizen. And on the right-hand side, in the lower part of the fresco, we find a soldier defending the town. This is the realization of the so-called ideal of homonoia, the Aristotelian ideal of homonoia, that is a friendship between citizens. So we find an allegorical representation with a new form of making statement, combining both pictorial dimension and textual dimension in a single representation. So it's a way to shape the city-state of Siena into what it was, to paraphrase Kilian concept. And it's also a new mental habit, citizen thoughts and action serving for the common good. And it's a way to show a governmental reason at work based on Concordia and Equitas. How much minutes do I have?
7.
Thank you. This is an example of this equitable governmental rationality. It's the realization of the so-called table of possession that was done by the governance of 9, and it was a registration of all the properties of the citizen of Siena in the town and in the countryside. It is an example of transparency of Concordia and Equitas at the same time. It was really important to identify the fiscal contribution, avoiding arbitrary division of taxation among citizens. And it's also a way to define some exemption for community or of the countryside, for example. This table of possession was realized with different phases. We have a first phase or writing the rules. The second phase was the collection of data, thanks to a general commission composed mainly by external subject, going out in the city and in the countryside, collecting information about the properties and realizing the so-called preparatory books. And the third phase was a phase of check and coordination of the data. The compilation of it ended out with the compilation of the table of possession. The cost of the realization of the table of possession was covered by the state. Initially, the idea was to realize this table covering by the owner's contribution, this cost, but they shift from the original idea to this new decision to cover by the state these activities. This was a signal of that the NAI were thinking and acting in a logic of the common good, of the good of the whole community, in a logic of concordential rationality. And it was a way to avoid fiscal inequalities and also to offer a strong instrument, a strong reference for avoiding controversies. These are the preparatory books where we see the name of the technician, realizing the measurement, the description of the property, the name of the owner, the living place of the owner, the nature of the possession, the specific name of the place, the borders, and the use of the area. This area was used for sharecropping, for example, and the measurement of the area. And we also see the valuation of the land inside this book. So all these information were checked and collected in the final table of possession realized for single citizen. And we can see here, for example, Nereo coming from the family of Salimbeni, and we have the list of his properties detailed in this book. So, what are our conclusion at this moment of our investigation? Our conclusion are that the Rossetti fresco is an allegory, not just an allegory, but is a highly rigorous and well-structured allegory, combining both the glottographic and non-glottographic dimension statement that are strictly interlaced. For the good governance of the town, both citizen and the state must act and think as a societas, so in the logic under the principle of the homonoia. And it's important, we have seen the citizen with the cord in their hands, so the contribution of the citizen is fundamental. So, for example, merchants and bankers are called to put what they can to the service of the state in case of peril, for example, to defend the town from external attack, and the government compensate them justly for their activities, for their doing. We have seen a governmental reason, but not just a governmental reason in a feudal logic, but a governmental reason based on concordia and equitas. We have seen the state governing to the truth as expressed in the books, both of the merchant, bankers, but also in the state accounting book, possibly using the double entry bookkeeping. And we have shown the use of the table of possession as an example of constructing true claim in a logic of equitable governmental rationality. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Very similar as artistic representation of governance, like good or bad, because you have both in this fresco, in other historical contexts in Italy, in other city, or it's
not to my understanding at the moment. This is a fairly unique representation. Mostly we have different representation, for example, in chambers of merchants. We find more commercial representation, the importance of the merchant for a city. But this full view of a civil painting is a fairly unique representation. Thank you.
Thank you. Max? Richard, could you?
Fascinating indeed. I guess the strangest feature to somebody who's not familiar with these kind of frescoes is the rope that connects the citizens to the sources of government. Are there any other frescoes that we know of which have such a rope tying people together? You could almost miss it if you didn't know you were looking for it.
I will check. To my memory, I haven't seen. Probably we have more religious representation in this sense. Also the inspiration of Lorenzetti in some aspect were from other religious representation. For example, the combination of visual and words comes from other religious representation. To my memory, I don't remember this single rope, but I could also check more in depth, of course.
Can I add something just on that? In the depiction, excellent book by Patrick Boucheron called The Power of Images, Siena 1338. It's all on this. One thing he points out is that the citizens who sort of make the rope move are dressed differently, but quite extraordinary. He said,
We've lost you. We've lost you. You're muted.
Yeah.
You've muted yourself.
Stupid thing, mutes.
Right.
Again.
So what Boucheron points out is that the sort of column of men are differentiated in their dress, but they're all exactly the same height. And he says, until you see it, you don't see it. And once you do, you can never forget it. And that's a sort of artistic doubling of, they are different, but they have homonoia in the sense of one mind, being of one mind. So yeah, that was that.
What's up?
Excellent. Thank you very much for this insightful presentation. I learned a lot, and particularly fascinated with the different disciplinary angles you take to there, because which I also mentioned it, there's this religious aspect, there's this aspect of politics, political science, there's some philosophy in there, is I can see. Now that we're and I admit I don't like this type of questions, but I ask it anyways. Now that we're in an accounting history circle, what I found a bit thin in there then is you teasing out where exactly and how you see with your fascinating and wonderful research on this, pushing our boundaries on knowing about of accounting. You mentioned a bit the textbook in there and so on, but this is all very thin. What I would like to better understand is how this fresco and your interpretation of this fresco from this multi-interdisciplinary perspective really increases our accounting knowledge base as well. Can you help me with that?
Yes. At the moment, explicitly is the reference is by the table of session. That was a way to measure and to create a system, an equitable system of taxation. It was not accounting in the traditional sense, I mean, but it was the base of the activity of the state, and by one side, and of the economic activity also of the citizen, taxed by a system based on equitas. At the same time, this equitable situation was realized by the use of accounting. So accounting was instrumental to the realization of this equitable contest, both by merchants and bankers. They were fundamental to keep the court up, because they were fundamental for the flourishing of the economic dimension of the town, but also fundamental for supporting the city-state in case of wars of attack. And the accounting of these merchant and banker was used to realize and to contribute to this peaceful realization of governance. And by the other side, we have the city-state realizing an accounting system based of a series of register. We have not focused the paper and the presentation, but neither the paper on this accounting, state accounting dimension. But they were instrumental to the realization of this equitable contest.
So, Stefan, if I understand you correctly, that would mean that the fresco is a sort of help, is a sort of guide, is a sort of interpretive lens, so to speak, on these accounting practices that were developing in order to remind people of these equitable principles of the unification of the community, of these checks and balances that you had in there?
It was a part of this philosophical thinking and acting, and it contributed to the realization of this homonoia ideal, in my opinion. Keith, if you want also add something, of course.
What I just add to that is that main wall with the figures on, as the slide actually shows, it's really divided into 3 levels. There's a top level where faith hope and charity are up there, the religious dimension. Then we get the philosophical dimension of all of the representations with their names set out in Latin. Then we have things at the level of the humans, and actually you switch from Latin to the vernacular, the Sienese vernacular, because everything is becoming doubled. You need to work in the vernacular if you are to engage all of the citizens, whether they are literate or not, that's the language they need to know. So in that sense, it is hugely complex, and I don't see anything that's quite like it, but we need to go further into the, thank you, Sebastian, we need to go further into the specifics within that.
Yeah, no, I think this is really great, and now I understand better. And just if you were targeting an accounting journal as well, then I would bring this accounting element to the front and motivate the paper through this, and then say, look, and here is a visual and artistic representation that helped guiding these accounting practices in a specific community. And then I think you can tease out a nice accounting story from this as well, in addition to the artistic and interdisciplinary story you already have. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I add one little anachronistic point? Again, Boucheron points out that people who go to Siena and see this whole layout of the three walls, up until the 19th century, nobody comments on the main wall at all. They only talk about the two action scenes of good government and bad government.